first video ever on my YouTube channel, I'm going to be reviewing and doing a demo for the Desi and Katy part 2 or volume 2, whichever you want to call it, collaboration with the indie brand Dose of Colors. So they came out with a new palette in their collection. I'm only reviewing the palette and the highlighter in their collection. They came out with, I believe, 4 lipsticks, I could be wrong, and 2 glosses. The only 2 things that they brought back from the old collection into this new collection was the highlighter Fuego and the lip gloss Over the Top. Okay, so I just finished doing the eye makeup. I already did this eye from what I was showing you in the demo, and then did this off camera, as you can see, and I did the rest of my makeup. The only thing I haven't applied is the highlighter from Desi and Katy collection with Dose of Colors. And basically I wanted to show you close up on how everything came out after doing the liner, and a little bit of the bottom lash line too. And that's how it pretty much came out after doing the eyeshadows. So basically, I'm just gonna apply the highlighter and then show you kind of like how I think about it. I've already tried this highlighter about maybe 6 times before, but I want to show you guys what it looks like on camera. So I have the box in it and everything, so this is what it looks like. And then it has the ingredients on the back and everything. And then this is what the actual packaging looks like as well. I'm not gonna lie, this bothers me a whole lot because I don't know if you guys can see. One, this sticker is not even centered at all. And I don't know if you can tell, but it's not even a even square. It's kind of like a parallelogram to me, in my opinion. And this is not even centered as well. So some people might say, oh, why would that even matter? Because it's manufactured machine cut, and I would expect it to be 100% right. And I know a lot of people are thinking, well, you shouldn't be tripping over that. It's my money. I'm spending it on this product. If you're gonna machine cut, make sure at least it's an even square, like not like that. And the square border around here is fine, and so is the mirror. I don't even know why they kind of put a mirror in here, because it's kind of tiny, to be honest. Like, you can get a little bit, like, you can see. Oh, I need to blend that out real quick. Okay. But anyways, I'm gonna swatch the highlighter for you. And by the way, the shade that I got is Fuego, which is also, it's like they brought it back basically from the other collection. And I didn't get Catching the Sun because I think that if you were 3 shades darker than me, I think you would like that. And people who are lighter than me, or my shade, or around my skin tone, I would really stick with Fuego. I think you can work with Catching the Sun depending if you are darker than me or anything, but I think a lot of darker skin tones, deep skin tones, would love, it's not Catching the Sun, Chasing the Sun. Chasing the Sun is a really beautiful highlighter, but I'm gonna swatch it for you. So this is what it looks like. Finger swatch. It's very pigmented. So that's what it looks like swatch. And then I always like to blend out the edges, just so that way if you were to get it realistically, how would it be? Like, how would it look like on your face, even if you were just swatching it on your hand? So that's what it kind of looks like blended out. It's very nice and reflective. It's more of like a pale white gold. It's not like the Amrezy Anastasia highlighter where that's a very pale white gold. This is a pale white gold, but like with bronze reflex and a hint of just the tiniest bit of rose gold. So that's what I see when I'm looking in this highlighter. But majority of the main color you're gonna see is gold. It's not like a bam yellow gold in your face. It's more of a softer gold. So I'm gonna apply it on my face using the Makeup Shack T89 brush, which is this fluffy highlighting brush. Kind of reminds me of the Morphe one. And I'm just basically picking up the color and swatching it. So I'm gonna do this on camera. I don't know if you can see. Oh, yeah, you can see it. I have to look in this little tiny mirror to see. And what I like about it is that, yes, highlighter is going to emphasize texture no matter what highlighter you use, but this one is a thicker, more dense type of powder, so it's not going to be very loose and sheer, where more loose and less pressed highlighters would emphasize the texture. This one doesn't necessarily do that. This one kind of like lays on top of the skin, which can be a pro and a con. Which means that, let's say you do have lots of texture, more than me, and you see it laying on top of the skin, it's not gonna like sink in like a highlighter, you know, a glow from within. It might just lay on top and might emphasize texture, depending on your skin type, depending on how much texture you have. Also depending on like what type of highlighters do you like. Do you like ones that lay on top of the skin, or do you like ones that sink into the skin? If you do blend this into the skin pretty well, I do say it is kind of like a glow from within, but majority of Dose of Colors formulas are more of a dense, thick powder type, so you're going to have to blend it in quite in the skin a lot. So I'm gonna just do the other side. That was a lot of talking for just this, but ignore if you see shadow. I just think I did my contour a little too much today. It's fine. I do find when I apply this highlighter on my nose, I think it looks a little cakey. Just a little, but nothing like too bad. And I think this highlighter works for very different skin tones and everything like that. just applying it, and then I always apply it on my chin because I love highlighter on the chin area. So I'm gonna come back to you guys wearing my glasses and everything and giving you a full-on review of the Desi and Katy Friendcation palette and everything else. This is what the palette looks like, and then you have shiny cardboard right here that I am not a fan of. I don't like shiny cardboard. I think it looks cheap. Just something about this, I feel like it could have been just a matte color, like a matte finish, but this is what the shades look like. So this is considered a very wearable palette because you have your neutral shades here and then you have your colorful shades. And I do really like this palette. I actually consider this my everyday palette, but there are a few changes I would make to this palette. So I'm going to get into the blendability of these shadows. So number one thing that you do need to keep in mind is that the shade Churro, which is this shade, it looks light in the pan, but when you apply it to the eyes, it actually oxidizes a little bit on the eyes. It gets a little darker. Churro shade is not the same the way it applies, and I do feel like that can be a pro and a con because some people might think, oh, if it's a little darker, I don't mind. But if someone is just looking for this as their transition shade, you need to apply it lightly and slowly because it can get really dark really fast. It can almost get as dark as Cheens, which is right here. Cheens, I feel like the way it is in the pan is the same way it's on the eye, so you don't have to worry about anything. But with these shadows, there is hardly any fallout in here. To be honest, when it comes to fallout, it doesn't really matter to me because as long as the quality of the products work, then that's fine. This isn't no Anastasia subculture fallout. You don't have to worry about that. If you do get fallout, it's very minimal to the point where as if you do get some, you could just brush it off and you'd be fine. But I don't think it's a complaint that has to be worried about or anything. For the shimmer shades in here or the metallics, like a moment, which is basically, I want to say a ocean teal blue with purple reflex, because so it looks blue right now, but when you turn it, it looks purple on one side. And then Game Over, which is an onyx black, which I hope I said that right. I think it's really pretty too, especially if you use Game Over first on the lid and then apply a moment on top. You get this pretty like dark smoky teal blue shade. I think it looks really nice. I also noticed that since Karen, I Love Sarai, had her collection with Dose of Colors during the summer, she had a teal blue, and I think some people were wondering if that blue from I Love Sarai is the same blue in here. No, it is not. Hers was a true teal blue with blue reflex as well. This one is a ocean teal blue but with purple reflex, so you might not notice a big difference like in the pan, but on the eyes they're quite different depending on the lighting and depending on how you use them. Also, I did notice between those two collections, the I Love Sarai collection and the Desi and Katy, the I Love Sarai had a midnight black with silver and black glitter reflex. This one is it's a black, but it's like a charcoal black, but it does have black and silver reflex. And I did notice that that's kind of weird how both of the collections have two similar shades, which I think in my opinion is kind of not original. I think it's called saving money, and hey, both of those colors look really nice and a lot of people like those colors, so let's just reuse the same colors in this palette. But I don't necessarily think that they're the exact same. They look similar, which is kind of suspicious on my part. I feel like it looks a little suspicious, but they do look a little bit similar. But when it comes to this shade, Dirty Money, it applies really nicely. I'm actually wearing it. I just did kind of close-ups on eyeshadow that you'll see later on in the video. But it is a beautiful sage olive green. It does have gold reflex to it, so it gives you kind of like, oh no. Okay, so my camera cut off, but I don't remember where exactly I left off, so I'm just gonna go into the blendability of the shadows. So these shades are really nicely, I do think they're really pigmented and they apply pretty nicely. I do have concerns with the selection of how many neutral shades she put in, Desi and Katy put in this palette, and how they put only one warm tone matte. So I'm gonna explain. With this shade, Girl Bye is the only warm tone shade in here. Now some people can disagree or agree, saying Churls is pretty warm tone, but the only problem with having only one warm tone eyeshadow is that I actually did a look earlier that I decided to scrap because it wasn't worth filming, to be honest. But I used Girl Bye in the crease, and then I tried to deepen it, like make a halo eye, how like I did with this eye, adding Cheens in it. That was the biggest mistake and also the worst decision ever, because Cheens made it so muddy. If you're gonna add warm tone, you should add another peachier shade, so, or I don't know, just something where it won't make the entire look muddy. And here's the reason why it does that, because you have a lot of these neutral deep brown shades that when you mix it with like a cranberry red, which is Girl Bye, it's a soft cranberry red, I would say, but when you mix those two colors within the crease or just in general on the eye, it's going to look pretty muddy and just like brown, like where did the red go? So I do think that that is something you do need to keep in mind when you're working with the shade Girl Bye. If you're using the shade Girl Bye, I would only mix it with like either churro, but very lightly. Like I said, churro does darken once you apply it on the eye, so add very little bit of churro. And then you can use Necessary, which is like this cool tone sand shade, like a cool tone beige sand shade. I don't know if you can see it right here. And that's the only thing. I did also notice that when I was using, when I just wanted to do like a simple red tone look, mixing Cheens and Girl Bye was really badly, but then when I tried to add Try Me, it looked even worse. So I noticed that when Desi and Katy did their announcement about their release of the palette and the collection and everything, Desi's eyeshadow look probably was only Girl Bye and Try Me. And I can tell there's a reason why she didn't add the darker browns, because it was going to make it look muddy and pretty awful. So that is kind of like a pro-ish con, like something you do need to keep in mind when you're working with the shade Girl Bye. But for pigmentation, that's what I'm talking about next. Pigmentation. How pigmented these shadows are, I would say, to compare them to other shadow formulas, I would say it's comparable to like Juvia's Place. And the only reason why I'm saying that is because they are pigmented. Trust me, these shadows are really pigmented. There isn't patchiness, there isn't a whole lot of buildup, and I do find that if you are building up shades, it's probably Necessary or Churro, but even Churro doesn't even have to be built up, like it's pigmented by itself. And what I do really love about the pigmentation of these shadows is that it's not overly pigmented compared to like some other eyeshadows where if you apply a lot, you're like, oh no, what do I do? These shades, you can blend them out very easily. So that's what I do like about the blendability of these shadows. I do think that when you are working with the shade Just a Kiss, it is not a pigmented, opaque, metallic shade. They explain that Just a Kiss is a topper shade. My thoughts on that was like, wow, that was a waste of time of Dose of Colors even doing that. Creating a topper shade. A topper shade. It's a white gold topper shade, basically, with like silver and maybe a tiny bit of iridescent reflex. I did put a little bit on top of the Dirty Money, and I don't really see too many reflex. To be honest, I don't notice a whole lot of difference by adding the shade. I think that what they could have done is made it into a full-on opaque white gold metallic shade with iridescent reflex throughout the eyeshadow. And I think that would have been way better, because if somebody wanted to use a glitter topper, we can just go get our Stila Magnificent glitter or the NYX glitter liner or Urban Decay. Like, we can do that ourselves. We don't want an eyeshadow palette, not an eyeshadow palette, an eyeshadow doing that, because when you have a topper shade for an eyeshadow, and then I've done other looks using it on top of a Moment, which was the blue shade. I use it on top, like, ooh, looks really pretty, and then I noticed 2 hours later you can't even see the reflex anymore. That seems a little inconvenient and kind of like, what was the point? Because I feel like if they wanted to use a topper, they should have just made a brand new formula, like a cream in a pot formula of it just being a cream form. Or I don't know, just that one shade kind of irks and bothers me, because every time I look into this palette, I know, don't use that shade. It's not going to be opaque. It's not going to be super metallic. It's just a glittery topper that is so unnecessary for me, because I have actual glitters that show up and last longer than 2 hours. But other than that, the pigmentation on these shadows are super pigmented. They don't need any buildup. There's hardly any fallout, and I think that you would be fine if you were to buy this palette. Besides that one shade, if you don't mind it being a glitter topper and you're like, oh, it's okay, I can just add it on this or that, then that's fine. I think it works out for everybody else. On to the ingredients. Here's something they do put on the very back of the palette in case you are sensitive to anything that they might have. It's cruelty-free, gluten-free. I don't know why brands would put gluten in it. I still need to research that. If any of you guys can let me know why brands put gluten in their products, let me know in the comments down below. And they're also paraben-free. I love that they're paraben-free, because I do know quite a lot of people that are very, very allergic to parabens. Parabens is a man-made preservative in cosmetics to help with your whatever eyeshadow, foundation, whatever it is, to not mold and for it to last longer. The only problem with parabens is that a lot of research and resources have said that it does lead to cancer, but like a very small percentage of it, and it does irritate people's eyes. I know Tina, like, I don't know her, but Tina from the Fancy Face here on YouTube is allergic to parabens. But this palette does not have parabens. It is cruelty free, it is gluten free. So this eyeshadow palette, for the ingredients that I do say were any concerns, would be that it does contain talc. And in case you are allergic to kaolin clay, some people might be allergic to. I don't know how kaolin clay reacts on the eyes if you are allergic to kaolin clay. So it does have kaolin clay, but kaolin clay is pretty actually good for the face. If you were to have it in face products, it actually does really help. It has lots of good natural properties that help with, I think, acne and smoothing out texture. I don't know exactly why they would use it in eyeshadows, probably because it's a white base technically. So it'll be good for using Necessary or the shade Just a Kiss. It does have dimethicone, titanium dioxide, which is just a white pigment that's pretty much all brands use in all their eyeshadow palettes. It has seed wax. I'm seeing if there's any soy in it to see if anybody might be allergic to soy. Oh, okay. Here's something to keep in mind. This palette is not vegan, so it does contain carmine. So in case you are wondering, is this a vegan palette? No, it is not. And the only shade that I'm thinking that is containing carmine is Girl Bye and Try Me. I'm assuming they both contain carmine, which there are other ways to get around when you're working with red eyeshadows. You can use red dye, but technically it's not illegal. It's just not exactly 100% safe for the eyes, just because it does stain the eye a little bit, but after like a day it goes away. or even a couple of hours. But they did use carmine, which is from beetles. So it's basically crushed up beetles in your eyeshadows. If you're ever wondering what is carmine. That's for the ingredients, so nothing too concerning besides that it does have talc in it in case you are allergic to it. And it does have carmine in case you wanted to get a vegan and cruelty-free palette. On to the next topic, which is, would there be anything that I would change about this palette? Yes, there's actually quite a lot of things I would change about this palette. Number one, Just a Kiss shade needs to be a opaque white gold metallic shade with iridescent reflex. It needs to be an exact eyeshadow shade, not like no topper. It needs to be an eyeshadow shade. For Game Over, right here, the Game Over, it should be a black, in my opinion. I don't feel like having a sparkly black isn't a shade that not a lot of people are gonna use. And Katy was saying that it's pretty and it's great for like a smoky eye, but in general, when we want a smoky eye, we want a matte black shade, and I feel like that is something that they could have just changed, which making this into a matte black and not a sparkly black, because this is one of the shades that I don't think I would use a whole lot unless I was doing something very dramatic. Another thing that I would also change about this is adding another warm tone peachy, or another like cranberry, or like a lighter or a darker cranberry, just because that one shade alone only gets you one look if you were just wanting to do a warm tone reddish look. And Girl Bye doesn't work with the other neutral shades. It becomes very muddy, as I said earlier before. So I would add another peachy shade, if that makes any sense. Probably not. I would add another peachier shade, and I would add a deep, like practically almost brown, but like a deep burgundy brownish shade too, like in the Juvia's Place Saharan 2 palette. And the Juvia's Place Saharan 2, which I am in love with this palette, I wish they would have added maybe like this shade or this shade in the Desi and Katy palette, just because Girl Bye doesn't mix well with the other neutral shades. But that is the only thing that I would personally change about this palette. Now, is it a palette good? It is really good. Is the palette worth buying? Yes, it is, in my opinion. For me personally, I would use this palette pretty much every day, just because it has shades that I love. This is the perfect palette for me personally, just because I love neutrals and colors, and I can't stand, like, even though I have neutral other eyeshadow palettes, I love color more than neutrals, just because I'm more of a color person. This is my review. Take what you want from this review. Comment down what you would change about this palette personally, or if you wouldn't change anything. What do you wish they added to the collection or anything like that, and stuff like that. Oh, one last thing. For the highlighter, it was $28. So that is something, a price that you guys should be aware of and everything. But where you can find this collection is at Dose of Colors online, Ulta.com, and maybe at the Ulta stores. I don't necessarily know if it's still in Ulta stores, because I know that it sold out pretty quickly. That is all for my review. If you liked it, thank you. Give this video a thumbs up and comment down below what is something else you would like to see me review, or something I could even work on when it comes to filming or anything like that. And don't forget to subscribe if you did like this video.